All right, I'm here with Megan Perkins from Embrace Bend and Janet Yerundi from Mecca Bend, and we are talking today about a mutual aid group being set up for our Central Oregon community. And I just want to start us off with asking, why is this important to each of us? So maybe Megan, you can go first as the, president and leader of Embrace Bend. I know our organization does a lot of work here in Central Oregon to dismantle white supremacy. So why does this mutual aid group, why is this important to you in that role?
One of the things that I think is so important about it is that it's prioritizing particularly undocumented workers in our community. And it's really centering those that are impacted the most by this pandemic because, a lot of these relief bills and this money that's going to be coming in from the government is going to leave undocumented workers, out of the equation entirely. And I was really shocked to learn that. So in my mind, this is the one thing that we can really do to help people that are so impacted by this pandemic.
Awesome. How about you, Janet? I know you're involved with Mecca Bend. Your group does a lot of work with the Latinx community here in Central Oregon. What does this mutual aid work mean to you?
Yeah, this is something that is very close to my heart personally. It's something that's always at the forefront of my mind. I'm the daughter of immigrant parents. This is something that I watched my own parents struggle with, the immigration process, the inability to translate documents, legal documents, immigration documents, all of these things that I lived firsthand with my folks. And this is back in the 70s and 80s. And it hasn't changed. It actually has rolled back now, the immigration process, as we know. So it's something that is very important for me to acknowledge and to see what's happening here locally in our own communities, is that our undocumented workers, our families that reside here, our children's classmates are part of these families that are not going to see any sort of financial relief from this stimulus bill that recently passed. So it's again, just a huge inequity issue that exists. And so I'm really happy to partner with folks like Megan and you, Lorelei, also to get the word out and raise awareness of this.
Yeah, and one thing that we're talking about with regards to this mutual aid group are the inequities that our undocumented and mixed status families face here, not just in Central Oregon, but around the country. And you brought up the relief bill and how it leaves out undocumented families. I know that that's especially the case for not just the check that you get in the mail, but also for your unemployment insurance and the benefits that you get with unemployment. The way that the system is set up is that you need authorization from your workplace to work legally in this country, and our undocumented friends don't have that. So when they're going to collect unemployment, they're deliberately left out because they can't provide that paperwork. That's just one example of many. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that specifically targets those that are working under what's called an ITIN number versus a social security number. And they are contributing directly to with their tax dollars. These are folks that are purposely paying taxes through those ITIN numbers, but do not have a valid social security number. Therefore, the IRS has no record of their reported income, so they in turn don't get any of that relief back. Another stipulation in that stimulus bill is that a DACA recipient, somebody that is covered under the DreamAct that was passed by Obama, they will also not receive that relief if they are filing with a parent or a dependent that is undocumented. So again, leaving off a big majority, a huge part of our own families and neighbors right here in Bend, in Redmond, in Prineville, and all of our local cities. This is happening right here, right now.
Mm-hmm. So just to clarify, Janet, you're saying that even if there's a mixed family, right? So if there's even just one undocumented person in the family, they can't collect any of these relief funds.
Correct. So if somebody, as I mentioned, if somebody is a DACA recipient, if they filed their tax return for 2018 and 2019, but they filed with a spouse or a parent or a dependent in their household that is undocumented, then they do not qualify for the relief bill.
And so all these things that we're talking about here are like coming from the relief bill, which it's important to talk about, as well as just general access to care. I mean, that's impacted by this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the reality is that, you know, many of our undocumented workers are still working even during this pandemic, and they're, you know, working in jobs that are super vulnerable to exposure to the virus, and to sort of the economic impact of the virus. And because they're not getting any relief, they're continuing to work, and often can be going to work sick and spreading the virus through work. Also, there's, you know, a real lack of, you know, communication going to our undocumented families. You know, a lot of the times the resources they're not in Spanish, or just generally not accessible to many in the community, because there are different news sources and different ways of getting information. And, you know, finally, there is a big fear of ICE and the immigration policies that continue to shift through the Trump administration. And so many are afraid to even access you know, things that they may qualify, you know, Medicare, Medicaid, because of this uncertainty and fear.
Yeah,
right.
Meg, you and I were talking a little bit about that specifically as it relates to healthcare. We know that this public charge rule that was in effect, which is basically sort of the vetting process that the federal government uses to identify those that are going to be a public charge, meaning they're going to probably use government assistance, and therefore their immigration applications and their statuses are on the line. If they do apply for federal assistance programs, under the rule of law, they are no longer qualified. They no longer qualify for immigration status. That public charge rule has been lifted right now. So it does give immigrants access to that necessary healthcare. COVID testing will be free, and the treatment, if they do test positive, will be free. But our families don't know that. Our families don't know that this has changed because our broadcast media right here in Central Oregon does not put out these messages in Spanish. So again, another huge inequity that exists right here in Central Oregon that we're hoping to sort of put together this communication in Spanish, but also this financial relief that is so detrimental right now for these undocumented families that will not receive it.
So if you're listening to this and you're learning a lot of these things for the first time and you're interested in learning more, we're going to continue these conversations. We're urging you to also take direct action today. We have a GoFundMe set up. If you go to Embrace Bend's website at www.embracebend.com, you'll find the link to our GoFundMe page where you can donate your dollars toward our mutual aid group so that we can get immediate relief to our neighbors and families here in Central Oregon who really, really need it. So please go right now today and give your dollars, please.